There is a reason, when you create a GMO crop, you create something that is seedless. Like, for instance, if you go out and buy a Monsanto product, you can plant your garden with all this Monsanto product, and it may actually produce seeds in the crops, but those seeds will not. You can't plant those seeds and grow another crop from them next year. It won't happen because they're hybrids. They're without seed. Now, I want you to think about how many people who may be these hybrid people from these watchers who are gathering afterward, who are gathering right now. Remember that a third of heaven fell with Hasatan, but only 200 came to earth. You can't tell me that there's only 600 angels in heaven when Scripture describes an innumerable multitude. But a third of those angels fell. Only 200 of them are chained on earth, the original fallen watchers. And so you have this continual interface of these dimensional creatures crossing in, becoming donors for these children, and then producing hybrid children who cannot breed. Now, many of these hybrid children who cannot breed, when you look at this situation, if you go back to 1960, most of the people in this country, most of the people in the world were married and had children. They were married and they had children. But now if you're creating and you're populating the world with a specific breed of hybrid that is incapable of breeding, the hybrid is incapable of breeding. So you have to disguise this hybrid such that it does not appear inordinate. Well, one way you can do that is to push forward the LGBT movement, where you have an understanding from most of the population that same-sex couples are not going to be having children naturally. They have to have children some other way. They either have to adopt or they have to have in vitro fertilization. And otherwise, they're not having children. That is the expectation among same-sex couples. All right. So into that, you can push in these hybrids who aren't going to have any children. And you can claim whatever, but now there's no expectation that every person is going to be married and have children. And the hybrid can carefully disguise themselves. Now, in addition to that, we see that the Baphomet is a bispecies, bigendered creature. That is to say, male and female human and goat, right? So because of that, what you're seeing now is you're seeing a lot of people, and I think these are people who were part of this hybrid crop, this donor crop that has been, the seed has been given over to Molech or Molechot or Molekim, and that because the seed has been given over or taken over, one of the two, given over or taken over, that you're producing, that they are producing people who cannot have children, and many of those people become transgendered, where women become men or men become women. Part of this transgendered push, and this is not to slander people who are voluntarily becoming transgendered, but I'm talking about people who have been doing this surreptitiously for years as part of a worship system of Baphomet, okay? It's not just a sexual predilection for some of these people, but rather a worship system to worship the Baphomet by doing these transsexual things. I'm not saying that all transgendered individuals follow the Baphomet or that that is their impetus, but I believe that there is a percentage that do, and that their reason for doing it is to pay homage to the Baphomet. And some of this comes out of longtime families that are doing this. Some of this comes out of longtime bloodlines that are doing this. And, so you're seeing some very interesting stuff that's happening. Now, suppose, for instance, that a lot of this transgendered line of people are also making sure that they do not accidentally create progeny. In other words, we don't want any seed outside the cloned seed. Just as Monsanto won't allow you to have a mixed crop, right? We're planting Monsanto seed. You keep your natural stuff out of here. In fact, I think there's been some cases where they have sued to keep natural seed from being planted next to a Monsanto crop so that natural seed doesn't come in there and actually proliferate the field where you can actually regrow without buying the Monsanto seed. So I don't know that for sure, but I have heard those stories, okay? So, the same question here. If you're cloning individuals or you're breeding individuals through test tube pregnancies only, where you're pre-selecting the DNA, this is the father and this is the mother, you're pre-selecting that DNA and then you're placing it, and then that DNA is then deposited in the donor mom, you can see where you're going to get a lot of really interesting things happening, but you have absolute complete control over the DNA of the child that's being born, you see? And so I don't know if this is the reason why this transgendered stuff is happening, but I do know that there is a lot more to this movement than meets the eye. And you cannot factor out the Baphomet as being part of this protocol. Maybe not all, but certainly part of this protocol. So when we see this now, we see that we're dealing now with the world with which we do not necessarily know what it is that we have in front of us. We don't know what it is that we have in front of us. We don't know the wheat. We don't know the tares. And we don't know this incidence of crossing over, if you will, because this is what the word abar means in the scripture, to cross over, to cross over. And it's a significant issue. And, so it's something that I'm hoping that the audience will consider. Okay. So that's it. Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. That's why she formed Planned Parenthood, was specifically to kill African-American, Black Americans. That's why she did it. Now, her eugenics program, under the Darwinian concept, that there was the possibility of an improved seed, which is fundamentally heretical to the creation. Yah created mankind and said it was very good. But yet, with the eugenics program that was developed by the Nazis under the Third Reich, this concept of we can do better, we can create the superhuman by using these genes and that genes and these genes and that gene. By genetic manipulation, we can create the superhuman. That was going on before World War II went to full-time violence. Now, after that, there has been a substantial increase in eugenics and its proliferation. Cloning is being done all over the world. A lot of it's being done illegally. It's being done on private islands and so forth. Again, you're seeing this idea of mixing the genes, because once the genome was mapped in the 90s, they were capable of doing cross-species breeding. And this is happening. This is happening in China. This is why you don't know what's in the food supply. You don't know how much human DNA is in the food supply. You don't know. You don't know if they've crossbred human DNA with pigs. So you're ordering your bacon from China, you're getting some part human bacon, right? And so you see that this cross-pollinization, if you will, between species, the door is open for that now, as it was in the days of Noah. It's now like that in the days of now. And so when you see this, now this is the thing that really bothered me about the superheroes, right? Superman, he's better than God's creation. He's faster, he's smarter, he can fly, he can do all these other things. He's Superman. This is one of the things I like about Captain America. He's a regular guy with a shield, right? Does cool stuff. But the other guys, these people with superhuman powers, I can run faster, I can fly, I can do this, I can do that. All of that stuff implies that mankind, as created by the Creator, is insufficient, not good enough, that there's some kind of creature that is better. And part of that creature that is better, at least from the Defense Department that's leading us into all of this stuff, is, of course, the super soldier. And the super soldier, they have hard evidence that these guys, these super soldiers that we unleashed in Iraq under the guise of ISIS, were all 7 feet tall or bigger, well-built, well-trained, can run twice as fast as the average guy, so on and so forth. So these super soldiers and these genetic mutations now are becoming full-time recipes inside of our community. Do we know what's going on about it? No, we don't. Do we know how much of this cloning is happening? No, we don't. Do we know whether or not they're going to be creating an elite class of people that they intend to have living on the earth, 500,000 of them, while they eliminate the rest of us organic seed from the face of the earth. But Yah said, do not pass your seed through the fire to Molech. Do not pass your seed through the fire to Molech. Do not let the seed cross over to Molech, Molechim, Molechot. There has been a lot of discussion, particularly in the faith community, that has been about the rise of the coming Antichrist and, of course, the coming tribulation and so on and so forth. And evil has been allowed to rise, and thrive and expand, and it goes on unbridled. And now we see evil really moving with no fear whatsoever. You mentioned it earlier in the show. People have no fear about bringing in the statue of Satan into downtown, going up on the public steps, confessing that they're open Satan worshipers, proclaiming all this stuff, in public about these witchcraft rites they do and the spell casting they do. I mean, there's no qualms whatsoever about any of this, right? Because we've gotten to a point now where the evil has surfaced and is now dominating the field. And evil is now good and good is now evil. And those who propose to say, gee, we should hang on to the good a little bit are denounced and condemned. And so what you see is that because this has inverted and flipped, we think that this coming of the Antichrist is going to be just completely unbridled. There's nothing to stop the Antichrist from walking in on a golden carpet and everybody's going to go, gee, doesn't the emperor look great? That is foolishness because the wrath of Yah and his judgment is coming. And there have been, I don't know how many prophets I have listened to who have all said this. I'm not prophesying this, but I can see in my own heart that this is coming. And the world we know right now, which is this world based on phony currency and fake money and running up debt and basically spending all the wealth of our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren in our lifetime in order to accumulate a bunch of stuff we don't need or want in order to impress people we don't know, all of that world is going to come to a screeching halt. And when it does, there will be those who seek the truth of Yah, and there will be those who shake their fists at him. But this is where we are, because the blood of the earth cries out, and Yah is hearing it.
Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Elkol.